Harryman Show.
Every school computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hey, welcome to the Harryman Show, number 17, where it doesn't get any more black and white than Hang Out Bermuda from Weird Al. Today, I'm really excited. I got Jon Bermuda Schwartz from Weird Al on. We're going to talk about the new book he's about to put out and what he's done in his past with Weird Al and etc. Plays in many other bands, a big Ludwig drummer. How you doing, John?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really a pleasure, like I said, to have you here. So let's kind of dive into where you started. I know you were born in Chicago. How long did you stay there?
We were there, I was born in 1956, and we were there until early 1960, so I was pretty young. I really don't have any memories of the city at all. I didn't really get out. I wasn't in school yet. And we moved, the family moved to Phoenix. In fact, a bunch of the family moved to Phoenix, and that was at a time where if a son-in-law or a cousin or something, or an aunt or an uncle or brother-in-law moved somewhere, the rest of the family moved with them. So I don't know that there was anything in Phoenix for us in particular, except that I think my uncle had moved there, and so my parents and then my mom's parents all moved to Phoenix right after them.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's how we ended up there, and we moved out into what was a new development at the time. It was on Rose Lane at 43rd Avenue, right up against Glendale. Those were all new houses in 1960, and they were cheap. They were like $12,000-$13,000. It was great.
Wow, that's incredible.
Which I mean, at the time, though, but salaries weren't big. So I mean, you were had just as much of a problem, then buying a $13,000 house as you would buying a $500,000 house now. It was kind of the same thing.
And what were the big industries in Phoenix? Do you remember at the time? Was it a lot of industrial work or?
Well, I don't know. Motorola was big out there. I mean, Phoenix was still growing. I don't think there were 200,000 people in the city yet. It was still pretty new. And looking across 43rd Avenue into Glendale, it was just a vacant lot. There weren't even any homes there. Maryvale seemed like a million miles away, and 59th Avenue and stuff like that. That was pretty far out to the west.
Yes.
There was no, the 10 didn't come through. You had to go out coming from California or anywhere else. You had to come out through Wickenburg, and the 60 turned into Grand Avenue. So I remember that drive many times, going back and forth during the 60s and into the 70s a little bit.
Oh, nice. That's hard to imagine. I live on the West Valley myself, so looking at that area, it's really developed now. It's just hard to imagine. But I was reading a little bit about your history. Your dad did some promotional stuff for a drum company. Was that Ludwig?
He did when we lived in Chicago. Yeah, it was Ludwig, and he had done some kind of an ad and a print ad, and I don't know what it was. I wasn't smart enough to ask him, and I wasn't smart enough to ask Bill Jr. when he was still alive, as if he'd have remembered. But whatever it was, Bill Jr. traded him out instead of paying my dad. Gave him a snare drum kit. Gave him a snare, wooden snare, stand, Macintosh cover for it, brushes, sticks, a practice pad, an instruction book, a Haskell Har Rudiments record. It was pretty cool. And my dad then bought a bass drum and a rack tom in the same finish, blue and silver Duco, to go with it.
Oh, nice.
So that my brother could have some drums to take lessons on. So my brother actually ended up with the drums first, and I got them from him after we moved to Phoenix.
And now were your parents musicians as well?
My dad played accordion a bit, oddly enough, and not professionally. And my mom was in Chicago, was on the radio as like a child prodigy singer, I guess, like singing opera and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And she also played piano, again, not professionally, but she could sing and play. And my brother, after drums, had taken up guitar. So there was a lot of musical background in there, just as I was easing into the drums. I had learned to play accordion before I learned to play drums.
Oh, wow.
So, and I don't know if that had anything to do with my father playing accordion, but I think they both thought it would be a good idea for me to learn a melodic instrument. And I did at the time, and promptly forgot it when I took up drums. I don't really remember anything about the accordion now.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. It's kind of a weird coincidence there.
Yeah, I mean, about 30 years ago, I picked up Al's accordion. It was probably the last time I picked one up, and I played whatever little thing I remembered from several years before, and I think he was impressed and told me to put it down, and that was it. That's the last time I played.
That's pretty good. And then, so you came up in the golden era of Ludwig Drums. Was Ringo a big influence for you as well?
Oh, definitely. In fact, before I started taking drum lessons, I was a big fan of the Beatles, and anything on the radio, pop radio, stuff coming out of England, Petula Clark and Tom Jones, and the Stones and Herman's Hermits, all the pop music of the day. And that's what I listened to, and that's where I took a lot of my influences. And when I actually got a set of drums, those were the songs I played to. I had a record player and had Beatles records. My parents had Gene Krupa albums, so I had a little bit of that influence. Not that I could do that stuff, but I was listening to it and playing along poorly to it. Mm-hmm. They had Alan Sherman records, so I had a little bit of a sense of parody, and not knowing that might be important someday. But I took it all in. I wasn't old enough to have any real prejudices or likes or dislikes. I liked it all. I liked all music, country or jazz or big band or whatever it was. I listened to all of it. And it was all good, and I think it all contributed to what I ended up, as a drummer that all contributed to that.
Was there any favorite Beatle albums you kind of picked through mostly?
I liked it all. I didn't really differentiate.
Yeah,
at the time, of course, and those first albums, they weren't all originals on those first albums. They did a number of covers, mm-hmm. and I'm sure at the behest of their record label. And so, little did I know that Roll Over Beethoven and things like that in Kansas City, I didn't know those weren't their songs. And yeah, I could see there was a different name in the writing credits, but none of it meant anything to me. I figured maybe it was just somebody had written it for them. Mm-hmm. And I found out later, of course, how many covers they had done. But, they all, I liked them all. They all sat well with me, and I could play or thought I could play along to all of them. So I did take a lot of influences from Ringo, and listening to the radio, a lot of influences from, I didn't know it at the time, but Hal Blaine, playing on a lot of stuff coming out of Hollywood.
Nice.
And so between Ringo and Hal, that's about 99% of where I take all of my drumming cues from.
Nice. And then I'm kind of drawing a blank here, but didn't Gene Krupa have a movie that was about an up-and-coming drummer? I forgot the name of that movie. It was a famous movie.
Gene Krupa story.
Oh, that's it. That's simple enough. Yeah. I'm gonna go back and watch that because I've been kind of thinking about that one recently. It's kind of weird, but he was a really good entertainer. I don't think he got the credit he deserved as being a movie star as well.
Well, he was. He wasn't actually in that movie. Sal Mineo played him, but he was featured in a bunch of film clips and stuff like that. And he was definitely an entertainer. I mean, it wasn't all about chops for him. I mean, he could play some cool stuff, but his thing was when he was soloing, you could dance to his solos. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were a continuation of the music, that the solo appeared in. So he was entertaining in that way. He did some stick tricks and stuff like that. Buddy was all about chops. I didn't know much about Buddy back in the day, mm-hmm. but he was, quite the chops guy. And I don't know if he ever twirled a stick in his life, really. You see film clips of him, and that's really not what he does. He's focused on the drums. Mm-hmm. The sticks don't get very far away from the drums. Mm-hmm. But Gene was all about showmanship. And, and again, at the time, I didn't really see that stuff. Now you see it on YouTube and all over the place. You can see all sorts of classic clips. But at the time, all I had was the music. Mm-hmm. In fact, we had the Gene Krupa story soundtrack. So I listened to all of that stuff. And, and I took a few influences from there. I mean, I could probably play or try to play that kind of stuff, as well as I could play She Loves You, so those were my influences. I didn't quite make it to Buddy status, but I could do a decent Gene Krupa imitation, I think.
And since we're talking about your upbringing, when did you start singing? Was that something you started with Weird Al, or was it prior to that?
Well, I that's very kind of you. I don't know if singing is the right word.
No, you're so good.
Nobody ever made me sing prior to Al coming along.
Oh, nice.
And I had never even considered singing, really. I mean, not singing melodically anyway. Mm-hmm. And he sort of made me sing because in the beginning it was just me and him, and then the band consisted of me and him and one other guy, and then the band consisted of two other guys, and they needed all the help they could get, even if it was me. And I'm actually the worst singer in the band. I always have been. And so when it comes time to doling out parts, I'm the last guy to get parts. And although later in our career, the last maybe 15, 20 years or so, Al's been giving me a lot of the hype vocals on some of the hip hop and the rap stuff that we do. You know, some of the atonal kind of yips and yaps and shout outs and stuff like that. I can do all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I can go, yeah. You know, as long as there's no melodic, you know, stuff going on, I'm good with that. You know, rhythmically, I can fit it into what I'm playing. So I'm usually, that stuff is relegated to me, and anything that has to sound good is the other guys.
Yeah, and the song Foil has been on rotation on my YouTube. I can't stop listening to that song Foil. It's hilarious.
Oh.
I love that one.
Yeah, happily they didn't make me sing on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes you can't tell, but that was a great one you guys did.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. I mean, I should say that I can sort of sing when we're doing group vocals.
Mm-hmm.
If they need me to sing group vocals and I'm singing the melody and I'm singing, you know, doubling out, I can do that well enough. I mean, I don't screw it up. If I have to sing something pretty that has to jive with another part, you know, another single part, you know, that's where I get into trouble. So I've done a lot of the sort of background vocals on things, but as far as singing nice parts, no, can't do that.
Yeah, and then speaking of drums, you're still obviously endorsed by Ludwig, so you stay with them throughout your whole career, pretty much, right?
Well, no, it seems like it though. I mean, I started on Ludwig back in the '60s, and my first brand new drums were Ludwig drums. I've owned several snares and kits throughout the years. I didn't actually become a Ludwig artist until late 2006.
Really?
And I think everyone thinks I've always been a Ludwig artist because they just associated me so much with the brand. They associated me so much with my love for Ringo. Mm-hmm. And they just thought I was a Ludwig drummer. And I guess deep down I always wanted to be. But no, I didn't actually sign on until fairly recently.
Oh, I apologize for that. I just put the
okay.
I associate you with Ludwig easily, just like you said. It's really easy to see with the Ludwig kit.
I'm glad, and I'm sure they're glad too.
Yeah, and I'm a Ludwig player myself. I love the drums, the old stuff, the new stuff. So yeah, it's great. Now I had a couple friends ask me to ask you how many cymbals you owned. Thursday
the 27th. 1,025.
Jesus.
No, maybe not. Hold on. Was it Thursday? Let's see. I think 1,027.
And is it all primarily one brand, or you just kind of venture out to different things?
Well, because I've been collecting so long, and before I became a Sabian artist, and I still buy a lot of Zildjians. Mm-hmm. So I have mostly Zildjians. I mean, probably 500 Zildjians.
Jesus.
And next, I would say is Sabian, and I've been a Sabian artist for almost 30 years.
Oh wow!
And they don't give me a ton of cymbals. It's not because they're handing me cymbals left and right. I mean, I will go out and buy used and occasionally new Sabian. Cymbals are so individual. If you hear one in the store and it sounds amazing, you got to get it. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's for most brands, their cymbals will vary, and sometimes it's very subtle. Sometimes it's just this little thing you can hear. I mean, Paiste 2002s and stuff like that are very, very consistent. If you like the way a 2002 18-inch medium crash sounds, you can order one without hearing it and be pretty assured it's going to sound the same, certainly close enough. But with Sabians or Zildjians or vinyls or some of the other Paistes or Istanbuls or things like that, they're very individual. And you really, if I hear a Sabian in the store, it's not enough to just, call Sabian and say, what, I heard this 21-inch, whatever it is, can you set one aside for me? Because it's probably not going to sound the same.
No.
So in that case, I'll buy new Sabians in the store. I love cymbals. And that's the one thing, unlike drums, you really can't change the sound of a cymbal. A snare drum, you can do all sorts of things to change the wires, padding, change the hoops, the way you hit it, the head, get a different drum. I mean, snare drums can be a million different things, and a cymbal can only do one thing.
Nice.
It can make one sound, or you can tape it up and then it can make that sound poorly. But you can't tune it. You can't really change its characteristics. So if you want different cymbal sounds, you've got to have a lot of cymbals. And over the years with Al, because I needed a lot of cymbal sounds, I would go out and, if we're doing a certain song, it's like, I need a cymbal that's got a certain edginess to it. I would go out and buy whatever that cymbal was, whether it was a Zildjian or a Sabian or a Paiste. Mm-hmm. And so I amassed cymbals that way. I mean, I probably got most of my cymbals during the 80s and 90s.
Oh, nice. That's quite a collection.
Yeah, and then that's also my retirement. At some point, thankfully, cymbals go up in value.
Yes, and, precious metals.
At some point, those will probably be the first to go.
Yeah, and then speaking of your current cymbal setup, what do you have on the kit right now that you're using?
Well, in town, I'm using all Sabians, and I'm not playing very loud stuff in town. I'm rarely mic'd up, so I have everything is kind of modest. Actually, my main ride is an 18-inch AA Crash,
really?
medium Crash, and it's one of those magic cymbals. I picked it out at Sabian, and it's one of those magic cymbals that is kind of in between. I mean, it very easily could have been a ride, but they called it a Crash, and if you don't hit it too hard and you have the right stick on it and just kind of don't bash the edge, it's a really nice ride. It's a really nice kind of a cutting, little bit of wash ride. Then you can lay into it and it's a crash. So normally that's my ride. And then I've got a couple of vault crashes. These are the original V crashes.
Oh, nice.
And which I think got involved in the AAX line later on.
Yeah, they stopped making those, I believe.
Oh, okay. So those are really good. And happily, I don't play hard enough to break those.
Yeah.
So I've got every size between 15 and 20 inch, and I've got multiples of each. But again, I'm just playing in town, and those aren't getting hit very hard. So I'll either use the 15 or the 16 with that 18-inch ride. If I need something a little more defined, or I'm in the studio and I don't need specific sounds, I will then break out a 21-inch Chester Thompson signature ride, or liquid ride. And that's got a little bit of a flange on the edge. It's not the old sound control, but it's a little bit of that, and it's a really nice. It's just a ride that you can't lay into it or anything. It's just a really pretty, sweet pingy ride. And then that 18-inch crash ride becomes a crash to that bigger ride. So basically, I carry a cymbal bag with 4 cymbals in it and a pair of hats, and that's what gets used 99% of the time. And then the hats are just hand hammered regular hats, 14-inch.
Nice.
They're just real nice, sweet hats.
Are you a wood tip or nylon tip guy?
Nylon tip.
Nice.
But mainly because I like the sound, and partially because they don't chip. I mean, one pair of sticks I use in town for lighter gigs is a wood tip stick. It's a Vic Firth jazz stick, and it's a narrow stick, but it's long, so it's got a good feel. But it's not super heavy, but it feels like it is, so I can play it sort of normally. But they only make it in the wood tip. And I asked them one time, can you make a nylon tip of this? And they said, no. I said, oh, well, fine, I'm going to use it anyway. It feels too good. So I don't know. I don't think I've ever broken one of those, but I have to replace them all the time because the tips chip. So if I had a pair of those with a nylon tip, I could probably keep them forever. Everything else has got a nylon tip, though. Now, my in-town cymbals are the ones I just described. On tour, it's a little bit different. I'm using Paragon crashes and hats.
Nice.
16, 18, 20. The 16 inches my splash. I play quite a bit harder. I use different sticks. I got a really nice dry bell ride, HH ride. That's a really nice big crash. It's a 22, but it's a really nice ride and got a great bell on it. And then I think a 20-inch China, just a straight China type, maybe an AA. And that rounds out the cymbals on tour. And I break some cymbals once in a while, but it takes a while. The Paragons have been really good to me. Chinas I don't go through very much. And actually in the last couple of years I've been playing a little bit lighter. I'm not hurting myself too bad out there. I'm not beating my brains out. And consequently I'm conserving energy. I'm conserving sticks. I'm conserving heads. I'm conserving cymbals. I'm not sweating like a pig at the end of the night, and hopefully I sound better. I'm a little more relaxed. I can save my energy. If we're doing something fast at the end of a 2-hour set, I'm not tired. So I'm just as I get older and smarter, I'm changing the way I play a bit. So I basically have 2 sets of cymbals. Do I need the other 1,000 cymbals? No. I mean, when I retire, I will.
Yeah, you do need them.
I'll need them then.
Yeah.
Do I ever bring them out and play them much anymore? Not really. I have a bunch of Sabians set aside that are equally nice. Like I've got all my vault crashes in one place where I can get to them. And got a series of APX cymbals, which I used to use on the road. Now, those are very Peisty-like. They
very high
discontinued
pitch.
those as well.
Yeah.
A lot of cut. The guys on tour didn't like those because they a lot of harmonics on those. So they were bleeding into the mics, and just the guys on the side of the stage were going nuts because they were really loud. And I was playing really hard back then because I loved the sound of those really crisp, clear, loud cymbals. It was great. And I played harder. And again, once I got rid of those and backed off to a little bit of a sweeter cymbal, a more melodic cymbal like the Paragons, I backed off my hitting hard a little bit. I'm actually looking at when we head back out, which we're looking at 2021 for that.
Nice.
I'm looking at the complex cymbals from Sabian. Those are really, really nice. Now, I'm not going to be able to hit those very hard, but they're really, really nice. I played those next to my Paragons, my own Paragons, and the Paragons have a little bit more cut, a little bit of a bark to them, a little bit more mid-range and some high-end. The complex are really smooth. They've got low-end, they got mids, they got highs. It's a really smooth cymbal. Not wishy-washy, but just really nice, really a sweet, like I used to hear cymbals back in the 60s. They just sound normal. To me, I would describe them as normal. Mm-hmm. And I may be looking at those for the next tour, just for the crashes. I like everything else I'm happy with, but and I'm not unhappy with my crashes, but when I heard these, it took me to the next level, and it's I really want to, and I'm glad things are improving. Otherwise, I'd still be using what I was using in the 60s.
Yeah. And then, Sabian's definitely innovative. I mean, they do use that word in their promo, but Sabian's a great company. I mean, I use some of their stuff myself as well. But I know that you're in California, but I know you kind of branch out and you play in some like classic rock cover band stuff. Is that anything you're still doing, or are you looking to get back into?
Well, I've always played with other bands, and up until March 10th to be exact, I played in 3 or 4 or 5 other bands here in town.
Oh, nice.
A couple of them I've been with for a while. I've been playing with, my main other band is a guy named Rip Masters. Now, Rip has been, I've been playing with Rip since 1981. Mm-hmm. And he's gone through different phases of kind of country and rockabilly and Americana. And in fact, his was the last gig I did, was March 10th, and a lot of original stuff with him. I've done a number of his CDs. He's traveled to Europe a bit. Unfortunately, he can't really take a band with him. Mm-hmm. But I've been playing with him for almost 40 years now. So he's the longest non-Al band I've been working with. I've been working with Idle Hands, which is a blues rock band. A lot of original material since about 98, 2000, somewhere in there. Another band I play with does strictly covers, a lot of classic rock and 60s and 70s stuff.
Nice.
The Zero G Band. Mm-hmm. And we had a standing monthly gig, which we would get in advance. Every December or January, we would get that year's gigs for the whole year. Mm-hmm. So I knew exactly what dates I was playing. If we were going on the road, I could tell them exactly which gigs they had to get a sub for, which I provide my own sub for that, and who they've been very happy with. And there's a couple of bands I sub with. One is called Crown City Bombers, and they do like a lot of kind of 40s, 50s, 60s swingy kind of stuff, and a fair amount of originals, but just some doo-wop, some rockabilly, some old-time rock and roll, and a very fun band, kind of a show, really. And again, they don't make me sing. Everybody knows not to make me sing. I must have. I either may have warned them, or they learned at that point. So on these gigs with all of these bands, I'm just playing drums, which again I'm perfectly happy with, and I keep busy. I do a couple of gigs a week, and again on most of those kind of gigs, there's not really much money, but I'm doing it because I like playing, and it keeps me in practice. And practicing at home is different than practicing playing with live people. And I miss that. You can put on headphones and play to a song. It's not the same.
Yeah.
There's not that push and pull. There's not, nobody really leads you in a direction you might not go otherwise. The record always sounds the same. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I do miss that. The whole COVID thing has been, that's probably my biggest regret of the whole experience, is just not being able to get out and play with people.
Yeah, it sucks.
And, I hope that comes back soon. And it will.
It will, yeah.
It's all going to come back, and we're not going to forget this year, but it's all going to come back as if it never happened, and we'll probably make the same mistake again in 20 more years. But, these things, none of the major catastrophes that have happened that have sort of brought things to a halt, none of them have been permanent. And this is not going to be permanent either. I think as soon as there's a vaccine and they can get people to take it, everyone will pretty much be back to normal. You're not going to see a lot of masks, and you're going to see people at concerts and sporting events and in clubs and eating in restaurants, and all the stuff that in a lot of places is on hold or not existent at all. It's just it's tough. It's tough right now, but it's going to be okay. And I'm not optimistic. I just know how things go.
Yeah, and I think
And-
a lot of musicians are going to come out better out of this. To be honest with you, they're going to be more hyped about it, more of the chops being better, kind of being recluse, or it could go the other way.
Well, yeah, well, no, the players definitely, and people that haven't been able to go out, are definitely going to do that. You see some signs of it. People want to go out and party, and I understand that. I mean, I'm getting itchy to go out and do stuff, but as an older guy, I gotta watch myself, and and plus in California, there's not a lot open.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't really go anywhere, even if you want to. You can't set up and play a gig. Go and do it in your front yard and have people drive by or sit across the street and watch you. That's fine.
Mhm.
Actually, I think those pay better than most of the club gigs.
I was actually born and raised in California myself, so I mean, I lived there for the majority of my life. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Where
So,
did you live?
San Bernardino.
Oh, okay.
So
nice.
not too far from LA, a little north of it, but yeah. I mean, speaking of which, what were your favorite venues to play in the LA area when things were normal?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, there are a lot of classic venues that have kind of gone by the wayside now. And back in the 80s, I played Club Lingerie and Madame Wong's and Londoner and the Arena and Radio City and Club 88 was this little hole that was great. And I'm trying to think what else. Cafe de Grand.
Nice.
There were a bunch of great, cool places. I mean, I eventually got around to playing the Whiskey. I don't think I ever played the Roxy. Of course, the Whiskey's still there. Roxy became something else, I think.
The Viper Room, right? Or no, I'm wrong.
I played the Viper Room as the Viper Room and the Central. Didn't play it as Filthy McNasty's. I played Filthy McNasty's in North Hollywood. Played the weird little places, the Blah Blah Cafe, Studio City, Troubadour, of course. There were a bunch of great classic places. Honestly, right now I'm not sure what the places are. With Rip, we mostly play Joe's Great American Bar and Grill, which is up in Burbank.
Nice.
I'm trying to think what else.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, that's okay. I mean, I actually have a list. I could just run down the list, but I'm trying to be smart, pull it out of my brain, and it's not working. This long-standing gig, a lot of the gigs are just kind of bars and restaurants. They're not really, I wouldn't call them music venues, per se. Joe's is a bar and a restaurant, but it's also a music venue. I mean, they really, it's all about the music. I think they have bands there 7 nights a week, and or dancing. There's something going on 7 nights a week. Right now, I don't know, but I think most of the places that I play with all of the bands are just not doing music right now. Mm-hmm. And the places that serve food are not having people come in for food. You can go out and wait at the curb and they'll bring it out to you. Mm-hmm. And, or maybe you can go inside and take it out, but that's kind of it. Very few places have sit down unless they can sit you down outside. That's kind of the new thing now. In some places, they'll block off the street a little bit, or they'll block off the parking places if there are spaces in front of the restaurant, and they'll put tables out there and they'll space them apart, and they put tables and umbrellas or a tent or something like that, and you can sit outside. And that's it. If you can find a parking space anymore, you can then sit outside. And it's sort of cool, but it's sort of weird. I mean, Denny's now has tents outside, and and that what they're adapting, and you have to. Yeah, there are restaurants, there are chains that have gone out of business because they didn't figure out to start putting people outside. They couldn't get people outside, and within 2 or 3 months, they packed it in.
Yeah, Phoenix is very similar in that sense too. I mean, plus it's a lot hotter here too, so. During the summer, we kind of slow down as far as venues and restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, summer's my favorite time to go there.
Really?
Not because I enjoy the heat, but because I can get a hotel cheap.
Oh, yeah.
go stay at the Biltmore for $125. It's great.
Good point. We live like lizards out here running across parking lots. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and then nobody goes there in the summer either. So you go there and the place is empty. It's all yours.
Yeah. Okay.
So. And not this summer, of course, but that's usually my wife and I usually go out there, and that's where we stay.
Oh, nice!
And it's a pretty central location, and it's great that it's got proper air conditioning, of course.
Yeah.
But it's close to everything. Well, everything in Phoenix is close to what I do. When I go out there, even when I'm just there for an afternoon when we're playing, I'll go out and I'll hit all the cool pawn shops and music stores and looking for cymbals, of course.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite hobby. I've got some friends I visit out there. Keith Rosenbaum I give a shout out to Keith. I've known him for many years.
Oh, nice.
And he and I will go run around, and my wife and I will go out and have dinner and stuff like that. And it's just, it's nice to see him. And so Phoenix is fun for that. But we try and go there in the summer just because it's actually more affordable, and our car's air conditioned and the store's air conditioned and the hotel's air conditioned. So we're all set. The heat doesn't bug us that much at all.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm a drum collector myself, so I'm always looking. Well, not so much lately, but I'm always going out there scouting for cool stuff and looking to the used departments and etc. But yeah,
I'm a big fan of the vintage, and vintage now means something completely different than it did like in the '60s. But in '60s, vintage drums were just old drums. You wouldn't want them at all. Drums from '30s or '40s, just 20, 30 years before. Now, 20 or 30 years, that's all completely contemporary stuff.
Yeah.
So vintage for me now is still maybe '70s, but 60s and before. I consider it an era rather than a time period going back. Anything older than 20 years is vintage. Well, anything older than 20 years is the same as what it is now.
Yeah, like they consider a Rocker Pro snare drum, black and white badge, vintage, and I was like, is it really? Just like you're saying. Oh boy. You know what I mean?
I go back to the original 3-ply, the clear maple era for Ludwig, the old Slingerland drums with the wide reinforcement rings. That's vintage for me.
No, I agree with you there. Yeah, it's some of the 80s and 90s stuff. It's almost the same as what they're making now. So I totally agree with that. One thing I wanted to bring up is you have a really cool book coming up, and you shared some of the photos with me, and it's called Black and White and Weird. You want to tell us a little bit about that one too?
Yeah, that is the official title is Black and White and Weird All Over. Sort of like the old joke, black and white and red all over. What's black and white and red all over?
Oh, gotcha.
So either depending, a sunburned zebra or a newspaper, depending how you consider red to be spelled. Anyway, and I wish I could tell you that I came up with that title. That wasn't my original title, and that one wasn't even mine. That was a friend of mine who I was asking questions about the photos in the book. Happened to say, if you need a title, here's a title, you can use it. And it was Black and White and Weird All Over.
Nice.
I thought, wow, that's great. That's actually considerably better than mine, and I'll use it. I'll take it. So he gets a free book. But the idea for the book came about. Well, I've always taken pictures of things. I always had a camera in my hand even before meeting Al. And when I met him, the very second time I saw him, I had a camera in my hand already. I was snapping pictures. And I mostly shot color. When I was living at home and had a dark room, I shot a lot of black and white, so I was no stranger to black and white. But with Al, I mostly shot color, and for a couple of the videos and a couple of the ventures into the studio between 1983 and 86, I shot black and white. I also shot color, but I shot black and white. I generally had two cameras with me at all times. And the black and white pictures, I had contact sheets done up, and a couple of the early prints pictures got printed from a couple of the videos, just but a handful. But most of them have just existed as contact sheets. They've just been sitting all these years. Well, over the years, I amassed more and more photos, and I always kept tapes of things, and with tapes, cassettes in particular, there was a point where I realized I needed to start archiving those. And it was a multi-year project, but a few years ago when I stopped and I finished my last cassette and everything's been digitized, and could not be deteriorating anymore. It was all preserved. I thought, I better start thinking about my negatives. I have hundreds and hundreds of rolls of negatives of stuff that I've been shooting since 1974.
Nice.
And not that they've been stored poorly or not that they deteriorate on their own necessarily, but I thought, it'd be a good idea just so they don't get gooey or whatever they do, whatever happens to negatives, I don't want it to happen. I better start preserving them. I better start thinking about getting them scanned. And, that would also make it handy in case I ever want to do anything with them, because everything is online now. There wasn't that consideration more than about 25 years ago. So in thinking about getting these negatives scanned, I realized that I had never done anything with all these black and white rolls of film. So I took sort of a closer look at the contact sheets. I really hadn't looked at them in about 25 or 30 years, and thought, this could be really interesting. Maybe I'll start with these. Maybe I could make a book. I'll self-publish a book and see what happens. I asked Al about it, and he says, "Yeah, go ahead."
Oh, cool.
So I and I looked into self-publishing at the time, and explored it a little bit, and then that was the end of it for a while. This was July of 2017, so not too long ago. Well, 2 years later, in July of 2019, I ran into one of the guys from Sony, who was Al's label for many, many years, and we were talking after the show, and I was telling him about this. I don't know how it came up all of a sudden again, but I was telling him I was thinking about putting some old photos of Al that had never been seen before, putting out a book. He said, "Oh, that's a good idea." So he emailed me a short time later. He says, "If you're moving forward with the book, talk to this publisher. It could be a good fit." is a friend of mine, and it could work out. And I thought, oh, okay. A couple of more months went by. Well, finally, last December, 2019, I contacted the publisher. Now, in the meantime, I had taken a couple of rolls of these black and white negatives in just to see how it would look. I found a place, and their specs looked really good for preserving these, really high resolution, and looked like they were using the right equipment and doing a good job. The price was right. They were just down the street from me. So I took a couple of rolls in, and they looked great. It's the first time I'd seen a lot of these pictures, well, any of them really, like any bigger than the size of a negative, because they'd never been blown up before. So I'm seeing these things and going, wow, not only do they, are they in great shape, but there's a bunch of really good shots. And so I was excited. So I contacted the publisher and introduced myself. It turns out he and I had worked on something. I'd sent him a scan of something for Al about a dozen years before. So we had touched base at one time. And we got to talking about it, and literally a week later, we signed a contract for the book. And so I got going on the rest of the negatives. I did all the cleanup on them, and got approval from Al on all of them. Basically, I sent him like 500 shots. I said, if there's any you don't like, I'd be happy to not use them. And he says, no, all good. Use them all.
That's awesome.
And from those, the publisher actually had a couple of his workers who are Al fans, it turns out, youngish Al fans, pick out and do a layout of the best photos. Like if I had 10 photos of something that looked really similar, they picked out the best one or two. We didn't really, we're not milking it. All of these photos are great. They all stand on their own and all deserve to be seen. And I don't think there were any that they didn't choose that I would have chosen. I mean, they picked exactly the ones, if I had to narrow it down, they picked them. And they did a great job and made everything look good. And some of them appear small, some of them appear across both pages. This is a nice size coffee table book. It's 9 by 12 inches high. And the pictures that appear on both pages, you can open up the book and it lays flat. The way they do the way they I don't want to say glue. In a normal book, they'll glue the pages, the edge of the book, and so when you open it up, there's a gutter. They all go down into this little valley in the middle, and the photo along with it. So that was my first question. Is I said, well, these pictures that are obviously across both pages, how's that going to work with the gutter? Well, they do a process called side sewing or side sewn, and it basically allows the book to lay flat. When it opens up, it sort of puckers up the middle, and it lays essentially flat.
Oh, cool.
So I said, oh, good. Well, then that solves that concern of mine.
Nice.
So there are a couple of great photos they did like that, and it's the book was announced on August 10th, so it was pretty recent, and to rave reviews, at least for those that have seen some of the photos in it.
Oh, they're great from what I've seen so far.
Oh, cool. Oh, thank you. Yeah. The Rolling Stone did a piece on it. Entertainment Weekly, Ultimate Classic Rock,
nice.
Ultimate Classic Rock, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Nerdist, of course, for the Al fan and everybody, and a bunch of people, copied those. I mean, it got really, really good press. It's been a #1 bestseller in some of the photography categories on Amazon.
Oh, nice.
And it's still top, and nobody's even seen a book. I mean, it's just these are all pre-orders. Nobody's getting a book until around October 27th when it comes out. So it's actually it's 2 weeks from now.
Oh, nice.
2 weeks, 2 months. 2 months from now, there will be physical books.
Yeah, I give you early congratulations on that before we get started. That's great.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud of the way it's turned out. I mean, honestly, I haven't seen a book, but I should probably have one in my hands in a couple of weeks. These went to the printer back in June, so they should be wrapping up about now. And they also, the publisher, in their wisdom, and this is, again, they're in the business of making cool books and selling cool books. They did a special edition book. The inside of the book is the same. It's got my signature on the inside, but they did a different cover on it. They did a nice little package with it. They did a dozen 9 by 12 prints from the book. Some of the best, the clearest. They were really, really good about this. There was one I wanted to have done. They said, it's a little bit blurry. It's, if we're going to do a 9 by 12, we really want it to look, if it's going to be a special thing, we want it to be 100%. I said, okay, that's why you're the publisher, because you know how to do this, not me. And there's a certificate. There's 250 numbered copies of it, and the edges of the book are The paper edges are silver gilded, so it's like a Bible except it's silver
Nice.
instead of red like the old Bibles used to be.
Mhm.
I mean, it's really, it comes in a box. It's really they did a deluxe job on it, and those sold out within a couple of hours
Oh, wow.
of when they were announced, and those went just really fast,
Oh, man.
and which is great, which is very cool. But the rest, and those will come out again when the book does in October. But so far, there's been great interest. Al has seen a layout of the book. He loves it. He thinks they did a great job. The few people that have seen layouts love it. They said it really, really looks good. So I'm very, very proud of it, and I don't think I'm going to make $1 million, but it's something to do, and it's something also to do while COVID's been going on, because there really hasn't been much else. I mean, we can't take vacations. We can't. I don't have any gigs. I mean, I'm not going out shopping for cymbals. I mean, I'm home, more than I usually am. So this has been great to have, to have some stuff to work on. And now I'm working on interviews and other stuff, and getting ready to, watching how the sales are going. And so I've got something to do. So the book came along at a good time. I mean, it was in the works beforehand, but happily, the pandemic didn't really put the brakes on this at all. And that was a question I had for the publisher. They said, no, we're going ahead. We're going to make some books, and we're going to sell them. And if we can't sell them, if nobody's taking new merchandise, we'll wait till they do. And the instant they're taking in new product, we have a stack of books to deliver.
Nice.
So no, the book is a go. So that's a good thing. I mean, that's a very cool thing. It didn't affect that at all. And so that's the book. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes and Noble. It's available worldwide. There's one people have asked after the initial signed special edition got sold out. They said, "Well, how do we get a special edition? How do we get a book and get it signed by you? Without having to track you down on the road, and wait a year and a half to see you or whatever it's going to be." So there's a bookstore in Hollywood called Book Soup, and they, I will be going up there. When they get their supply of books, I'm going to run up there and put a mask on and put some gloves on and sign all of those books.
Cool.
And personalize them as well. So people, when they pre-order a book from them, will say, can you have them sign it to Lisa? So, I'll sign it, hi Lisa, thanks for buying my book, how's the weather, hope you're fit, or something to that effect. And then the bookstore is also giving out a set of 5 postcards that are exclusive to just some of the independent shops, something you don't get on Amazon and something you didn't get with the special edition. So that's something else they'll be doing. And that's going to be a pretty cool thing. And that link is, their link is on the book's website, and the book's website is blackandwhiteandweird.com. And for anybody that doesn't know how to spell weird, you can think of that old rule we learned in school, E before I, that's weird. Yeah, so that's WEIRD. Yeah, so blackandwhiteandweird.com. And there's it's a pretty austere site. It's all black and white. It's black and white books, so why not? And it's very functional, and which is important because people are looking at stuff on phones and pads and stuff. And I'm a web designer since like 1995, but I'm very old school. I don't do any of the optimization for devices, and that's just not what I do. And so this site is all about that. And so if you look at it on an iPhone, you're not going to miss anything. So you go to the link that says the menu item that says book, and it will show all the places to buy it. And under the top is a U.S. flag, and all the U.S. places, and Book Soup is one of those. So that's how to get the signed regular edition and those postcards, which again will come out October 27th.
Nice. I was going to ask you, I'm going to share the links for you too when I get this episode up. But yeah, I'm going to definitely pick one up myself, and I'm excited to see that myself as well. Sounds awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, if you get one from Book Soup, and I see Dustin, I'll go, hey, Dustin.
the hairy guy, you can't miss it.
Hairy guy. Hey, Dustin, you hairy guy.
So before we close this up, I know it's hard to say right now, but are you guys looking to go back on the road in 2021? Or I know we brushed on it a little bit earlier, but what are the plans as of now?
Well, the original plan was we were going out in January of 2021. We had some dates, but I mean, this was already in the works back in January, February, March. And in mid-March, excuse me, when everything hit, the booking agent said, we better, probably not a good idea to try and hold anybody to those January, February, March, April dates. So they said, we'll wait till later in the year. So, we're looking at later in the year. I don't know that they've really done anything at this point. It may be too early to tell, but there is still a plan. If it's at all possible, we will go out in 2021. We will go out in 2022, and I guess keep going out until either people stop coming or Al dies. And even then, that didn't stop Elvis's band from going out and doing the Elvis show. Maybe we need to get a good video of Al doing a performance, and we can use that, and then we can just play behind it.
Yeah, hologram.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. We better get on that.
Yeah.
In fact, he doesn't even have to die. He may say, "Fine, just to take out the film and go out and play and send me half the money. I'll just sit at home."
Yeah, the cool thing about that, you can literally do 2,000 shows at one time.
Ooh, that too.
Yeah.
we could just broadcast. Yeah, but you can only do that once.
Yeah.
You can only do one show 2,000 times, and then you're done for the year.
Yeah.
Hey, if we could get all the money for 2,000 shows and do it all in one show, that'd be great. We could retire. I wouldn't even have to sell my cymbals.
No, not at all. Well, John, I really want to thank you for coming on the show. I know we're just getting started with this show, but it's been a huge honor to have you on, and it was a great talk. It went by really fast, actually. But yeah, man, go ahead.
No, thank you, Dustin. I appreciate it, and I hope this show does really, really well and gets a huge audience, and that would be very cool. I'm very proud to be near the beginning.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. So, once again, what was the link to get your new book there? That's the best one to reach out to?
blackandwhiteandweird.com, E before I. That's weird.
Okay.
And that's where the book's at. My site is BermudaSchwartz.com.
Nice. All right, so I just want to thank you guys for all listening and share the episode if you enjoyed it. You guys all have a good day.